down at the Capitol, responding to phone calls, responding to texts, responding to emails. I think it's very important, the communication both ways that we have right now and hopefully continue. There's so many things going on down at the legislature now that affect central Minnesota, your districts, this region, and especially our community, from wastewater infrastructure, which you're both very well informed about, the $7 million that was supposed to be allocated to us last year, which is presently in a lawsuit, which would have an extreme effect on our community as far as taxes. The longer it takes to get those dollars, the higher the price tag is becoming. And once again, these were upgrades that have been required by the state. So we would appreciate your help and really appreciate what you've done for us so far. And just briefly, I would mention other things like the LGA. I know there's discussions on daycare and numerous other things. And we really need and appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. The bill on the wastewater, funny as it is, I think is one of the most sought after bills. I mean, it's the one that I don't see many bills like this where everybody wants it because it was the right bill and it had the right projects. So I have pretty good confidence that's going to get done. It may be a little bit, of a curvy path to get there, but I think that's going to get done. And I know the Senate's been working hard on that as well. Everything else you said, yeah, I'm in full agreement with. We have to grow our communities, and it's a people problem. I see John coming up next. I'm sure he's going to talk about the daycare, but I won't steal your thunder, but without some of the things he's going to talk about, we're not getting folks here. And I'm just going to be very honest with you. If there are no folks here, there is no tax base, there is no industry, there is no future. And that's just, that's the way economics work.
Yeah, and just, Greg, on the wastewater, the House from last year actually, because they wanted to go up in spending a little bit because they saw a real need for wastewater infrastructure in a lot of places. And so they said, let's tap a fund that normally isn't tapped for that. That's why we have the lawsuit, but without them stretching out to try to do a little more, Little Falls wouldn't have had a project. And so I don't fault the system, but the courts are going to have to decide. But my commitment to Little Falls is that we find a way to do it one way or the other by end of session. There's been proposals to just change it all to GO bonds instead of the way it was funded. And some people like that and some people don't. And it's kind of a new mix of people. And it takes a supermajority to pass in the House and Senate. And so I don't think I have it right now. But I am working towards a win.
And Senator Gazelka, and he summed that up very nicely. One thing I'm going to mention about that, what we did on that in the House, and I'll be honest, we looked very closely at those funds. And what we did was not unconstitutional. In fact, we used those funds exactly what they should be for, which is clean water. So guess what? If you're cleaning up the water that's coming out of the sewage treatment plants, you're doing what those funds say. Now, I've had people come back to me and say, don't use that money, and here's the fact of the matter, folks. You've elected me to solve problems. I went down there and I solved problems. I'm not breaking the Constitution. I'm finding creative ways to help our communities. And so that's how I look at it. We had great support. We had some rogue groups that decided to do a lawsuit because they didn't think the funds should be used for that. And they're environmental groups that care about clean water. So I'm not quite sure how this works out. But that's where we're at with it. So my commitment to you is, I'm going to look for creative ways. We worked well with the Senate. You have to fight for resources, because I can tell you, if we don't, there are 133 other districts that will fight against me, and 67 other Senate districts that will fight for resources, because we're all in this thing, the same thing. We're trying to improve our communities. So sorry for the little bit of a diatribe, but I wanted to add to it.
Thank you, John.
As JonRadermacher, City Administrator for the City of Little Falls. I was going to just ask if there will be a Senate bill that's going to mirror what House File 80 is doing, and that's just the conversion of the bonding bill into general obligation. It seems that one progressed through the House it's progressing through the House pretty quickly and solves the issue as the mayor stated. We have a grant that will fund $7 million of our wastewater project. We intend to bid that project this spring. It was on a long and very arduous decision for the council to come to make sure to do this plant operation, and the use of those grant dollars were very important in us moving forward with that project. And at this time, which, as the mayor said, is getting more and more expensive every day. So if the longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes on the people and the residents and the utility payers in Little Falls, because the $7 million is the absolute cap of that grant that we can access. So by dragging the project out, it doesn't give us more money for it. So having a solution to that either comes through funding the bonding bill and funding that point source implementation grant, or if it doesn't happen, then the direct appropriation to us for the money that we're eligible for would be very important to have accomplished this session. As far as daycare goes, I see that there are a couple of bills that are being proposed. What the information that I'm learning, speaking to providers, trying to engage with the business community, and also those on the inspection side, now working with Sourcewell, who does the county licensing for family care providers. Solutions that we need for our community come with dollars attached, as well as some modifications in the regulations too. What we're struggling is the economics of daycare are such that we cannot charge enough for the families to get the coverage to also then pay for the construction and operations of a facility. And we are suffering from about a 475 child deficit to licensed spots in our community, which we're not alone. Greater Minnesota is suffering from this from every corner of the state, but we need resources, we need support to help solve these matters, because it does go into what Ron was saying is a workforce issue. I know of families that I've spoken to that had intended to take jobs in Little Falls, both spouses, but without daycare, they weren't able to make that happen. When I came to this community 3 years ago, I had to spend 3 months apart from my family because we didn't have a daycare option available to us. Fortunately, we're one of the lucky ones where we were able to find something. But I know of so many families right now that have infant kids that they're spending 5 days out of the week, they're going a different place. They're just doing everything they possibly can to make it work so that they can keep working. And it's a struggle every single day for those families. It's a struggle to be in this position and feel like I'm trying to accomplish things and not having the resources or a solution to really solve that issue immediately. One last thing that I wanted to address and ask for your support. We've been working on a project, and I'm certain that you've heard about it with BarretPetfoods. And one of the roadblocks that we're running into is with our gas utility. They're informing us that they're at their capacity for supply to our community, that they won't engage with upgrading that infrastructure unless the company that's coming and asking for this increase is going to pay for it. And the question is, how much is that really supposed to cost? So we're really at a crossroads of, can we even expand more businesses to our community and create more opportunities to our community if we're held back by something that right now isn't in our control. And
This energy?
This is CenterPoint Energy.
CenterPoint.
Yeah. They're our one natural gas supplier in town. So we do have access to some nearby transmission lines for natural gas, but there's a lot of concern about if they're not willing to do it, how might we be able to solve this? So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and know that we're hopeful, or we want potentially some action taken to make sure that we can bring in the resources that we need to grow our community and make it a better place to live. Thanks.
I'm just going to say thanks, John. I'm going to let Senator Gazelka, I'm sure we're going to be in pretty close lock and step on it, but thank you. I agree with your comments.
So first of all, John, House File 8, the wastewater infrastructure one, I have to have 41 votes, I have 35 Republican senators, so right now I'm not there. That's why I said my commitment is end game to make it happen. If I can get it done earlier, I will. We're exploring a number of different options, but I have phone calls with the Democratic Speaker of the House, of which I can't share with you now because you won't keep it a secret. But I'm fully aware. And then on daycare, that was one of the top 5 issues that we listed. We listed 5 issues that we want to focus on in the Senate: mental health, daycare, healthcare costs, the tax conformity bill, and then waste, fraud, and abuse in government. And so those are kind of our key things that we're looking at. And daycare, one of the things in rural Minnesota is regulations. Everywhere we go, people say it's the regulations are driving a lot of people out of the business. Maybe not the big ones, but the mom and pop ones. And so it's on our radar. We have a number of senators that are carrying legislation to work on that one. And then finally, John, on the last one related to the natural gas capacity, if you'd send me, and I'm assuming Ron, an email on that, that one's first time on my radar. I wasn't aware of it.
Great, thank you. Robin?
RobinHensel, and I live here in Little Falls. I think most people here probably are aware that not only do I value my First Amendment rights, but everyone in this state. And it is because of that that I'm here today. Even though you sponsored Senate File 247 and introduced H400, which became 2 laws in 2017, at Minnesota Statutes 3.226 and 16.6C, .053, as your constituent, I'm requesting that you now sponsor or co-sponsor a bill to repeal them. These 2 nearly identical laws seriously impede my rights to free expression, association, and religion under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Similar laws in other states have now been struck down by federal courts, and there is a looming possibility that these laws will soon meet the same fate, all at the expense of Minnesota's taxpayers. As you know, these 2 laws were introduced as measures encouraged by the State of Israel to counter the rapidly growing and popular BDS movement. BDS is short for Boycott, Divest, and Sanctions, modeled after the boycott movement that helped defeat apartheid in South Africa. And segregation here at home, an international BDS movement engages in nonviolent boycotts designed to put political and economic pressure on the State of Israel to end its human rights abuses and discriminatory practices against Palestinians. The state principles of international BDS movement are simple. They are that nonviolent punitive measures should be maintained until Israel meets its obligation to recognize the Palestinian people's inalienable right to self-determination and fully complies with the precepts of international law by ending its occupation and colonization of all Arab lands and dismantling the wall, recognizing the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality, and respecting, protecting, and promoting the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and properties as stipulated in U.S. Resolution 194. Thus, those who engage in BDS activities do so to express to Israel that its human rights violations and discriminatory practices are wrong and that there will be an economic price to pay. This is a direct expression of an idea. The federal courts that have now examined other states' similar anti-BDS laws have so found. Moreover, the Supreme Court has long stated that the government may not prohibit the verbal or nonverbal expression of an idea merely because society finds the idea offensive or disagreeable. Minnesota statutes 3.226 and 16.C.053 are unconstitutional because they require prospective vendors and contractors who wish to boycott Israel to refrain from this First Amendment protected expressive conduct in exchange for a state contract. The statutes are also a violation of the First Amendment because they are hopelessly vague. The Supreme Court has held that the government may not compel the endorsement of ideas that it approves, and if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, national, religion, or other matters of opinion or force citizens to confess by work or act their faith therein. These two laws are directly designed to compel the endorsement of the idea that boycotting Israel to promote human rights is somehow unorthodox. As such, these laws are unconstitutional. They also defame Minnesota's image as a rigorous protector of free speech. They invite lawsuits that the state will lose. I therefore ask for your support in sponsoring or co-sponsoring a bill to promptly repeal these two laws, because as a matter of religion and conscience, I support the right to boycott Israel in the nonviolent movement for Palestinian human rights. No one should be excluded from contracting with the state of Minnesota for doing so. Thank you.
I sponsored that bill. It's one of the best bills that we did last year. I had incredible bipartisan support. My question to you is, how long do we want to perpetuate the hatred of the Jewish people? I think we have enough anti-Semitism out there already. If you read that bill, and I wrote it, and Robin, you're wrong. I did not have Israel supporting me. I did not have anybody coming to me. I worked with Jewish people who said, Ron, we have bombings in our synagogues. We have kids that are discriminated against every day. How long is this going to come up? So what we put was a common sense law that simply says this. If you as a company want to discriminate against Israel, go right ahead. But you can't do it and apply for state funds. We are not going to allow you to use taxpayer dollars and discriminate against people. Robin, if you do this with homosexuals, you do this with people of African American descent, you do this with any other protected class, you cannot use state dollars for discrimination. You cannot. So to say that this is unconstitutional, first of all, you have no idea because you're not a Chief Justice. And I can't make that determination. I'm a legislator. I put a bill out. We had huge bipartisan support. And if you want to continue to perpetuate anti-Semitism, I think Representative Omar is doing a great job. You just join right ahead with her. But I will not continue to push hatred. That's not who I am.
It is not.
I had my say.
It is not anti-Semitic to call out Palestinian atrocities, war crimes, and genocide. That is not anti-Semitic to call out the Zionist government, who is perpetuating a concentration camp that's the largest open-air concentration camp in the world. And would you have done this? Would you have written legislation to do the same thing for the South African issue?
Have you been to the Holocaust Museum?
At this point in time, what is being discussed is not getting picked up on the microphones. So this is being recorded. This is a bigger conversation to be had. We heard you, Robin. They heard you. And we will continue on with our next question.
Before you turn on the tape, I just, to be clear, I'm absolutely where Representative Kresha is. I very rarely text it out or tweet out against somebody, but it's that trend or attitude, and Representative Omar had her like the fifth one, and I finally said that's enough. And even Nancy Pelosi asked her to publicly apologize, and so it's a trend that both Ron and I are very concerned about, Robin.
And we'll continue on.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Kresha. Thank you, Gazelka, for being here. My question, I'm Devin Janicek. I'm here at the Little Falls Care Center. My question is related to long-term care. Life expectancy is constantly increasing with medical advancements, and fertility rate is decreasing. With the projected socioeconomic and demographic patterns leading up to 2030, how do we plan to adjust our long-term care facilities to both for employment and ability to provide the care that's needed for the residents?
Bingo. That's one of the biggest problems that we have to face. If you look 5, 10, 15 years from now, the number of people over 65, the cost projections are in the billions of dollars of increase, and so it is the very question that I'm asking people to answer for me right now. We already have a budget that has grown about 39%, our state budget, 39% over the last 8 years. And if we don't figure out how to bend some of the spending curves, particularly in HHS, I'm not saying cuts, but slowing the growth of some things, we're not going to be able to answer that looming problem that is not going away. So it's the same question I'm asking. I'm asking our chairs to be digging into this issue, and any advice you have, I am open to.
I'll just say ditto. Thank you for raising the issue, and we'll do the best we can on that.
Okay, next.
My name is SylviaSchwarz. I'm from the Twin Cities. And I'd just like to continue on what Robin was saying. First of all, I'm a Jewish American, and I believe in equal rights. And I think that all of us believe in equal rights, and I believe that you also believe in equal rights, Representative Kresha, and that's why you brought... Pardon me?
Appreciate.
I'm sorry. And I think that's why you brought the bill up, and that's why it passed, because you thought that it would increase or decrease anti-Semitism. The bill, the law that was passed is unconstitutional, and it does restrict free speech. And this was ruled in the U.S. District Court of Arizona just recently in December in the case of Jordahl versus Brnovich et al. And they said that it's unconstitutional and an infringement of First Amendment right of free speech. So I don't want to repeat everything that Robin was saying, but I want to say that since I am a Jew, I do not believe that either what Representative Omar said or the fact that you are preventing people from their free speech rights to boycott Israel. I think that those are not anti-Semitic speech, and your law does not restrict anti-Semitism.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say thank you, and I appreciate the clarification. If someone wants to run a bill to repeal it, that's how legislative process works.
Okay, good morning.